Yoke yourself to Jesus Christ.
Travis Wingoodsall. As of last night, YouTube lifted their ban of viewing their channels. So I'm paying very close attention to how systems operate and function. Seeing what else is an anomaly after the cyber terrorism patterns. In the meantime, it's day 3 of the countdown to the Exodus, following the sevens pattern that I did the video on the other day. And so I'm not really sure what to do as a video. I wanted to retire, but then realized, okay, right, the last day is the Exodus, so I'll just keep going to the end. And struggled through with the YouTube cyber terrorist attack. But I realized this morning's video, I forgot to put in the church news video, or picture, about the abuse of women and blacks all rolled up in one, concerning finances. And forgot another picture as well, but oh well. It's the content that counts, right? So, yeah, in case you're brand new, this is the Exodus time of all prophecy. This is it. Guess what, Mormons? You're the chosen ones. I know you already think so, but not that way. And so you're under danger watch, because if you already knew you're the chosen ones, then you're the ones who are headed for a heartbreak with utter destruction. Whereas those who humble themselves and recognize that the church has lied and deceived you and conned you out of your money, because they're the great and abominable church, it also means that they're trying to coup the government. And they are well underway. And so the fall of the great and abominable church, and then comes the Exodus. According to the sevens pattern, and the day before, or the year before pattern, whichever one, the sixth pattern, is when the church falls, which would be Wednesday, and then Thursday would be the Exodus. And as I've gone over with you, I've already got the inspiration for the Exodus and how to set it up and organize it so that we don't have bugs. And if you don't understand, it's because you don't know your scriptures. I have associative memory, so I've got an advantage where I'll just be talking on a subject, and because I'm not reading from a script, a vision will cross over my mind that ties into what I'm talking about, and so I can often stray onto the tangent trying to cover it and then veer back in. Those who've been watching for the 8,000 plus videos on both channels know what I'm talking about. And so I think we'll cover Idaho Chick's comment that stuck out to me and turn that into a video for you. Her comment was on Latter-day Isaiah prophecy, pleasant pictures of Mormon daughters of Zion, looks that utterly destroy. You gotta, I'm a fan of The Simpsons, and so you gotta pay attention, especially with my associative memory. So, looks that utterly destroy comes from Motley Crue's Looks That Kill. So when you see the picture in that video from the church news about how kids now have approved playlist of music to listen to, oh, I can just see it now as a kid. If that came out when I was a kid and my mom said, "This is your approved song list," there would have been hell. Because the church pulled that same stunt to TV watching for kids when I was a kid. But it was slightly different from the psychologists that were messing around and experimenting on Mormon kids through the parents, because Wednesdays was still when Relief Society was being held, and thus primary. I had outgrown primary, so I wasn't there with my mom. And for my dad, that I think it was Wednesdays, there was a special combined priesthood and Relief Society meeting during the Wednesday Relief Society meeting night. And it was to scare the parents into telling them that TV is evil and will possess your kids just by watching it. You know, Ringu. no originality with psychologists. None whatsoever. But they did beat out Ringu, but it was already a thing in, what was it, Japan? Is that a Japanese origin story? Horror story? But yeah, my parents came home, and of course I'm there watching TV as normal. And they come in through the door, coming home, and come right to me, and she's got the wheel chart in her hand that they gave her. They were supposed to regulate the amount of time each day to watch TV. Oh, hell no. Ain't gonna happen. No. So the backstory of this is that I was born in Berkeley, California, March 17th, 1970. And we lived in Oakland, and then a year and a half later, in November, my brother Todd is born, and he has colic. And so my mom has to be with him pretty much 24/7. And so what does she do with me? Well, I'm kicked to the TV. I'm the chosen child, the firstborn birthright blessing son, and now all of a sudden this other kid is in our life and mommy's dealing with him all the time. And my mom said that my behavior changed and after that experience. And she doesn't make the connection to having to abandon me to be with Todd, and thinks that it was something psychological that, you know, stop listening to psychology TV shows like Dr. Phil. Bill Maher did a Club Random on last Sunday with Dr. Phil. See, Bill Maher knows, but he doesn't make the connection that psychology are to blame for his great comedy sketches about how stupid American kids are. As he had an American kid on his show last night for his real time. And so, yeah, Sesame Street had come out. And so they got a TV for me to be babysat by. It's too expensive to hire a babysitter, and the first one they had when I was a baby was a smoker and blew smoke in my face and thus caused the allergies that I still have to this day. That's why you'll hear me clear my throat constantly throughout the videos. It's because of the allergies from the babysitter. And it was strange because my dad says that he found that she was stashing her cigarettes and lighter in a plastic bag inside the toilet tank there in the bathroom. That's how my dad was able to find it, I guess. But yeah, and so I would find out as a kid, staying over at my cousin's house with sleepovers, and Honey would be sleeping in the room with us, and would wake up in the middle of the night having trouble breathing. But more so when we went to visit my mom's parents in Ventura, and looking back, I noticed the pattern of when I and my siblings, or at least Todd, because we would sleep down there when parents were finished watching Lawrence Welk or whatever other show on TV and having adult conversations. As Todd and I would be placed in my parents' bedroom, my parents tried to switch it up over the visits so that sometimes Todd and I would be in the one bedroom that had the cute baby pictures. I found them online the other year, and so somewhere in my files they are there. But and other time, and it just ended up being that it was easier for Todd and I to be the ones to be taken from the room that my parents stayed in, which was up there at the top floor of the mansion, and then walk us down all the stairs down into the main floor where the garage is. Not the main floor, but the garage floor level. And put us to bed in the fold-out couch there in the TV room. And so I noticed that when I was in the TV room before bed, jumping up and down on the carpeted couch, and then in the middle of the night, sure enough, that's when I start having problems with the breathing. It's because I'm allergic to dander. I'm allergic to pollution. I learned from Gail Miller's concentration camp of hell of human trafficking that I'm also allergic to secondhand residue drug smoke. And here we are getting in the wintertime where they're going to round them all up and exterminate them this year. To solve the problem of homelessness once and for all. Because that one legislature, he had it all figured out. He knew exactly what to do, and it failed. And made the problem worse. And cost the cities too much money. And the legislature, I think, is still in office. That dumbass. Oh, God. His plan was to lock him up in jail to solve the homeless crisis. Back when we had the Rio Grande shelter, Operation Rio Grande. They set it all up from the beginning. I saw the whole thing being set up. The church didn't want the panhandlers at Temple Square anymore. So the church ordered the legislature to do this. And thus, the Gateway Mall with the housing. And thus, right across the street from the shelter, what do you think the panhandlers are going to do? Yeah, go to the Gateway Mall. And then the business owners were upset. Just like the church. Scandal, scandal, scandal. And if you talk to him, he'll say, oh yeah, mission accomplished, that was a great success. Yeah, real awesome. So why are we having to build more after Gail Miller's 3 that was 400 beds less than the original? They tried to fool you into thinking, oh, we've got 3 shelters being built. 3. That's more than 1. They just think you're stupid. God, just the abuse, my hell. And of course they throw in Jesus. Yeah, Jesus told me to do this. This is going to work out perfectly. Just turn that frown upside down and trust in the Lord. We gotta have this church fall. Dear hell. So, yeah. And so Sesame Street became my education, and thus taught me associative memory. And so that helped me out when I got sick of school. Fiskin gave me an F on my Idaho report, and I was just pissed. I didn't care anymore. And it was before, well, it could have been the same time period. I don't care anymore. I don't care no more. Phil Collins. So yes, I listened to the radio a lot too, whenever Mom sent me to my bedroom. She had no clue how to raise kids. None whatsoever. She was the oldest daughter in her family, and yeah, she couldn't handle that family either. Oh God. So, yeah. And then to find out she had a crush on Elvis. All those women ripping off their underwear and throwing it at him. And it's not because I'm jealous. No. It's because they're evil. But that's how it works in our minds. I've noticed that myself over the years. You know, the girl in the TV show or the movie that I have a crush on, and I recognize that I'm getting upset when a guy is trying to make the moves on her. No, she's mine. Stay away. She's pure. Don't touch her. And so, yes, I can see how Christians, using that human nature response to be in denial of it, and to claim that they need to then force other people's agency to conform and comply to their interpretation of God's will for all. Taking away agency and holding people hostage and forcing people to be slaves to Jesus. Yoke yourself to Jesus, who we've enslaved. Right, Nelson? Nobody catches on to that. It goes right over their head as they're on vacation that conference weekend, smearing poop on the Capitol walls. Clueless of what Nelson told them. And then the manuals get changed because he's the living prophet of Jesus. And so we no longer read the scripture that says, take upon yourself Jesus's yoke. No, it's yoke yourself to Jesus, who also has a yoke by this church. Jesus is held hostage by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That is an awesome title. Let's write that down. There it is. And you won't miss this. I mean, fortunately, because it was conference time, and YouTube has trouble controlling me during that time of the year. My Oaks video was heard far and wide. Yes, Lorenzo Snow's BYU video is now official church doctrine of the living prophet of Jesus, Lorenzo Snow. I haven't even checked if it's in the Lorenzo Snow manual that we used to have for Priesthood and Relief Society meetings. And they did the prophets of the church, teachings of the prophets of the church for those meetings. And I know the scandal of the Brigham Young one, because I was right there on the forefront, transitioning as we were finishing up the footnoting project for the revision for the Spanish test run first, and then other foreign languages. But yeah, there were people who were finished up with their part of it and transitioning over into this other project for the manuals, and they chose to do Brigham Young first. And so yeah, I know the people, I know the errors that they made, and I know that they weren't supposed to make those errors, and they made them anyway, and and information was left out to fit their agenda. And so, yeah, it was my mom who set me up to watch TV. TV was my educational tool and my babysitter, all rolled up into one. And so I was taught how to learn from TV. And so I selected what I wanted to learn, watch. And so for the majority of people, TV was an entertainment thing. Come home from work, come home from school, they just relax their brain and just sit and get entertained. Very few people I'm aware of use TV and movies and music for learning. And so this is why our school systems are failing miserably. When 2020 hit and kids were staying home from school, all of a sudden teachers didn't know how to teach anymore. It's just, oh my hell. And this is the problem, is that teachers are forced by a school board to teach from a curriculum. And so when 2020 hit, oh no, what do we do? What do you mean, what do? You teach kids. Do you not know how to teach kids? Didn't you go to school to get an education on how to teach kids? Or did you just go to school to get an education on how to read from a curriculum manual? You know, like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does for their teachers. And so it took time before intelligent teachers started coming out with classes online. But still, you hear the stats of the miserable failure on our kids because of the teachers' inability to teach our children. And now we're trying to threaten the society to praise the teachers for their inability to teach our children. They're our heroes. They're out there teaching our children. No, they're not. They're reading from a manual, a book. They're not teaching. And especially with this attack by Christianity to deny science and revise history, you know, education has just been warped. And then in the 90s, I understand that because of Star Trek New Generation, psychologists said, hey, that's a great idea. Let's screw up kids' brains. And so, yes, psychology also has been attacking our school children and the school processes. So now, kids can't take tests because it's stressful. And they've got to bring an emotional support animal to school. And so, as long as they show up for class, they graduate, they participated, and they get a participation sticker. And then they get put out into the job market. Stupid! And thus businesses began to tank. because all these privileged kids who were not taught how to research, who were not taught how to handle test taking and to use science and science methodology and logical Socratic methodology in your scientific research for testing, for confirmation to establish truth. In other words, learn how to learn. Right there in the scriptures, especially in the Book of Mormon. We'll liken the word unto a seed. You gotta produce the results, because faith without results is dead. Notice I said results and not works. People use the wrong definition of works. So I had to use results. If we were to liken the word unto a seed, it would be seed without fruit is dead. See how it's not seed without planting is dead? Yeah, big difference when you get the right definition for your biblical scriptures. They're talking about science in the scriptures, and yet Christians are using the Bible to destroy science. It's in the scriptures, but they don't like the Jews. So they replaced it with Christian interpretation to destroy knowledge and send us back into the Dark Ages, as the Enlightenment period had pulled us out of the Dark Ages with the restoring of the Greek documents and Socratic logical methodology and science. And so, yeah, our whole nation is screwed up. And so kids, because I saw it, because I was out, I'm old enough to know about Pong. My dad bought it. And I sort of got pretty good at it, but yeah, it gets pretty boring. You can only play with it for so long. But then they started coming out with Atari and other home devices to hook up to your TV with. And Glenn next door had it and used it to show how much better he was than we were with Pong. But nonetheless, yeah, then arcade games began coming out. And so at the 7-Eleven at the corner, heading to Auburn Jail, or what eventually would be the crossroad to Norco, I would stop in there and buy the candied chalk cigarettes. And if nobody was playing Asteroids or the other computer game, I'm not sure which one that one was, but I would play that. But most of the time there was a kid on that one. And so when I worked in high school for Rusty's Pizza, they had a Double Dragon arcade game, and I got good enough on it rather quickly because I figured that doing the backward elbow jab can take me all the way through the game. That was the secret code to win the game every time. And so yeah, I was only able to stick in one quarter and rescue the girl who was tied up and her clothes ripped at the end of the video. And so those kinds of things panicked Mormon parents and the church, Christians, evangelicals as well, as they were on a full-on idol-worshipping fear campaign to scare kids from enjoying life, from learning from it. Because this is the setup, is that psychologists had set it up to be entertaining so that then they can come back and say, you guys are lazy couch potatoes, good for nothing. TV is ruining your life. and then blame the TV for it when it was psychology that's manipulating you the whole time. Not having TV being a learning tool. And so then you get the arguments, specifically in the 80s, about how TV doesn't portray reality accurately. And yeah, that's correct. It's based on a person who's a script writer. And depending on how good of a job they do, you actually have to learn the subject matter that you're going to write about. So if you're going to do a cop show, you actually have to learn about cops. You got to learn their code words on their CBs, and all of the legal terminology and stuff for not just cops, but when you enter it into the Law and Order shows, they've got to be accurate. And so, yes, Law and Order specifically used real case examples to fictionize their stories. But the medical ones were the more frustrating, because if you learn first aid and CPR, you realize that nobody's doing it right on TV or in the movies. You really can't. Because you're supposed to break the person's chest with the compressions so that you can get the heart pumping. And you can't do that to a live person who's still breathing but pretending not to be breathing. So, wow, if you've got people who are just watching to be entertained, this kind of stuff doesn't occur to you. Only if you are in the profession and you're watching a show of your profession do you catch those kinds of things. And so, yeah, after certain jobs that I would get, I now can see those types of movies and TV shows and go, oh man, how stupid. No, do that. No, oh my God, who wrote this script? Even in Battlestar Galactica. You know, I will be arguing with the scriptwriter through the characters. And so now that we have social media and the internet, we're still seeing the same exact thing. And of course, evangelicals in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are on the attack, trying to shut people down, trying to ban the internet as evil and of the devil, and social media. And notice how they've changed their attack plan. Now everything is harmful to children, to try to justify the attacks. And The Simpsons had an excellent episode on this. Won't somebody think of the children? Good old Maud Flanders, who's now dead, having been shot by a t-shirt cannon by Homer Simpson. They just killed her off. I don't know why. I mean, did her voice character die? Because there was the one guy. I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me from such hits as... You know, he's dead. And so they had to replace him with other characters and another voice. But, I mean, yeah, but Crabapple has dating Ned Flanders? Simpsons has a sick sense of humor, and when I die, I expect to find them laughing. Yep, indeed. And so, yeah, you can see where my associative memory ties in all pop culture from all these different generations. And I was tested on my musical abilities at work for the church. One of the co-workers was doing song lyrics and seeing who could guess them. And I was getting all of the 80s stuff. But then the 90s stuff, I had no clue because I was up in Canada with a wife and kids. My life was over at that point. Going a different route, learning Paleo Hebrew in the pre-show days. But yeah, that's what I'm able to do, is take from all of the pop culture of humans and be able to learn how to learn from that to proceed forward. Because my dad wouldn't teach me how to learn. You know, like I said in the other video, that my grandpa didn't want to raise kids, and so the dad had to know exactly what my grandpa wanted when he wanted it. Same with my grandma. She had to know what my grandpa wanted when he wanted it. He would never ask for it, and if he had to ask for it, you know, he got very angry. And so my dad, likewise, you know, he's working all the time. He doesn't have time to raise me and teach me stuff. And so I'm left to myself to do what I want. There's the TV. And when my mom's not upset kicking me to my room where I would then listen to the radio, I was always learning something. TV was never an avoidance of learning. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know my life and the world and what's going on and how to live in it and how it functions and all of that. And so, I mean, for me, that is entertaining. That is relaxing and enjoying, is learning. And so, especially with my eyesight, apparently the Michigan eclipse had caused the bad eyesight, requiring glasses when I was getting older. And then there was the California one too. You have to have kids come out blindfolded, and then you have the box already set for them, and then you place them in the box hole to view, and then remove the eye blindfold and then hold their head down until it's over, and then put it back on, and then march them back into the house. Because too many kids are tempted to look at the solar eclipse, even adults. But nonetheless, not everybody can stand in the presence of me. If you got that, the other video. And so, yeah, I've tried to figure things out all this time. And so this is where I've had to do a lot of pioneering research. And even though other people have already figured out some stuff, by my doing my own original research on it, not having access to other people's research, I'm able to check other people's work and find where they are lacking, what they're missing, where they went wrong. And when Stephanie abandoned the marriage and stole the kids and stole my Paleo-Hebrew research and fled the country with the help of the church and our parents, and then was able to get a divorce without me up in Canada because of Canada's laws. And then Utah says, screw you being American. If you owe child support, you better pay. But I came to my parents' home once. My mom was at the kitchen table, and she was working on the lesson for Relief Society that she was asked to teach about the signs and symptoms of those who go through divorce. So she, knowing that she had helped in the causation of my divorce, but unwilling to accept her responsibility for it, she asked me, after saying that it was for the lesson, and there was a psychological book she was referencing that had a list of symptoms, and she asked me if I would tell her some of the things that I went through. And so I began talking, and she had the book opened to the list of symptoms, and she had her pencil or pen in the other hand and was checking over them. And then I noticed she wasn't able to find what I was talking about. And then she got a piece of paper and started writing notes. Case example: psychologist who published a book in the field as a PhD knows nothing of the subject matter that he got an education and a degree and a title and a published book for. I knew better than him, because I lived it. So, that can be annoying to professionals in the field who are not so professional. They tend to feel that they're being threatened with their authority. Right, Nelson? I mean, seriously, the way it's set up is that the oldest living apostle becomes the president of the church, which is the highest rank rather than the oldest, but oftentimes they're the oldest. The highest ranking apostle becomes the next leader of the church. It has nothing to do with actually being a prophet, seer, revelator, and translator. Those are just titles. And they've fooled Mormons into believing that, well, I'm the president, I've got the mantle now, and so when God wants to inspire me, he'll do it, and I don't have to do any work for it. It's just a spiritual witness feeling. And Nelson knows this as a medical doctor and surgeon who helped with the creation of a heart pump thing. He knows the truth, and yet he still lies to you. And then don't even get me started on Oaks. Don't even go there with me. Don't do it. Oaks is already upset with me. And so this is the difficulty I've had coming to Utah, where I thought they're right here with the prophets. They get special firesides by the prophets, special TV presentations by the prophets, and I'm having to live outside of Utah. having to go to my stake center to watch conference on the satellite presentation. And so I thought I was going to be way behind the level of knowledge that Mormons here in Utah had. Boy, was I wrong. I admit when I'm wrong. Apparently, Mormons take the opportunity to go on vacation and smear poop on the Capitol walls. Mormons take for granted the church. And the reason why is because if you were to actually study the scriptures, you'd learn they're lying to you. Which is why they're telling you to just have faith, get the right feeling, and feel good about it. Dear God, what a nightmare. And so yes, Mormons are threatened by me for having studied my scriptures. You know, they see my scriptures and they were all marked up. They're somewhere in one of those boxes. And instantly they're threatened, especially when they're a teacher or a religious leader. They're instantly threatened because they know I have knowledge from my study and research, which is physically manifested with my annotation. And that's only a part of my study and research. I have documents that I had piled up, and the Paleo-Hebrew research, you know, William Foxwell Albright's decipherment of Proto-Sinaitic, which he called Paleo-Hebrew. It's just a little pamphlet. It was turned into a published book. And my research, somewhere there's the picture of it, side by side, his little pamphlet book and my research of not just the script, but of the vocabulary. Volumes, thick volumes. There's a big difference. Dear God. How that man fooled everybody to getting a cushy lifestyle job at a university, telling people lies that they all want spread and then branch off from. Oh my hell. So, anyway. What's up with Idaho Chick? Let's see what her comment is, actually. Now that I've given you a 51-minute introduction. And so, yeah, she does an emoji of a busting up laughing with tears. I am cracking up and absolutely loving your childhood story about fashion plates. I've got it right there in the closet. The books are here because they didn't fit with the games in the closet. I invented games. As a child, sitting in my room, I had to find some other thing to do while I'm listening to the radio. And so, yeah, I was working on a new kind of code. I was trying to figure out a new kind of alphabetical language. I was working on creating an arcade game out of cardboard. It's a board game shaped like an arcade game. I was trying to work on the big game, which I've told you about. Civilization 3 complete, and then the Stargate Atlantis episode of the game that actually was controlling the lives of people on another planet. And then, while being incarcerated indefinitely, which ended up only being 6 years because of 3 key retirements, I figured out how to do the board game. And so all of that and much more I've invented and have, but I just need somebody to play with it. You want to play with me? I'll scratch your back. reference to another comment she sent. Used in a different context. You're not required to scratch mine. But, and so yeah, the whole childhood was because of that. You know, my mom set things up for my life, like TV, and then I would get punished for what she had set up for me to do. That was my life. You know, I'm a kid. I want to know what to do. Parents are supposed to teach kids what to do. You don't punish a kid for what you told them to do. And so, like for teaching, the teachers should have been made aware of the transitioning of entertainment in a kid's life, so that when certain music comes out, kids are learning from the music, even though it's all entertainment for them, but they don't know what they're singing. Which there's Jackie Chan and is it Chris Rock? They did a trilogy movie series, and I think it's the third one where the one government ambassador leader's daughter is being given a ride in the back seat, and she's singing about how she's a slut whore because that's the popular song for kids at the time. You know, it's like listening to Madonna, because we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl, you know that we are living. Or like a virgin, touched for the very first time. Turn that off, don't you listen to that, Mom. I like it, it's got a good beat and tone. Benson told you not to listen to music with beat and tone. And that's been the debate, is that Christians say that music possesses people to force them to do stuff. And I have noticed that as the older generation, when they were younger, were involved in the news raping 16-year-old girls. And I'm just, wow, that's just like creepy. Wow, how could they do that? Aren't there enough hot chicks their age? And so then by listening to the radio, I'm hearing all these songs from the olden days before my time about how cute, attractive, and wonderful 16-year-old girls are. Oh, I wonder if there's a connection. So yeah, if you're just being entertained using entertainment, pop culture for entertainment, you are easily susceptible to the indoctrination that they are presenting to you. And they try to distract you by mocking Christianity, by having records that can play backwards, go to church, say your prayers. You know, demon stuff. And now they've got backmasking for digital stuff. And so Christians jump on that, saying that you're being brainwashed. And no, truth. When you know truth, you recognize falsehood. That's why knowing the Book of Mormon, when I find Doctrine and Covenants scriptures that go against the Book of Mormon, I'm confused. When I am taught certain precepts from the scriptures, and then I'm told that Joseph Smith physically saw Jesus and Heavenly Father, as a young boy without being baptized and without getting the gift of the Holy Ghost. And he's not burned. Those things get my attention. And I don't have the resources to do the research to figure out why there's the problem. But it's in my associative memory. I file it away. And eventually I would figure it out. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the great and abominable church. And they're lying to us, and they've forged documents to prove that they're false, like framing and blaming Joseph, calling both him and the Book of Mormon as Christian. So, chaos ensues. And Mormons attack me as the enemy, threatening me to deny truth. So all of the psychological manipulation and bullying is in full force in our nation and in the church. So, yeah, the whole fashion plates thing, yeah, I want to know sex ed. I wasn't given sex ed. You know, and as I read the scriptures, I'm going, hey, this sounds like sex ed. The waters are parted, dry land appears, house of Israel passes through on dry ground, the Ark of the Covenant going first. Yeah, that's all sexual stuff. And so, yes, as I learn Egyptian, learn about the Nile River, yeah, you ever look in the mirror, ladies? There you are, you're the Nile River. From the mountaintops down into the delta, and there you are, your bodies are the symbol of the Nile River of Egypt. And thus why the inverted triangle is the symbol of a woman's vagina. And thus the mountains are your breasts. And the baby, yeah, because with the snows melting, causing the flooding of the inundation every year, the mountain soil is red. So the snows, as they melt, takes the soil with them, and it's red soil, turning the river of water of the Nile red during inundation. The land of the Egyptian soil is black, thus Kemet, the black land, and it's in the feminine form. The Egyptians knew your bodies was the Nile River. They taught it to their kids. And so, yes, when you have the story of Moses, people assume that it's plagiarism from King Sargon I, who likewise claimed that he was a baby floating in a little wicket boat thing. Just like Moses was, a thicket of twigs and branches and weeds and whatever, a bird's nest. And so no, that's Egyptian stuff. Sargon stole it from the Egyptians. Assyriologists will never acknowledge this. They use the Bible to support their science. Claim that Turkey is where Noah's Ark really was, and ignore the Yoked story of the Egyptians and the Heliopolis creation glyph for the Genesis chapter 1. But yeah, the story of Moses as a baby, that's exactly why. The river Nile was considered the female goddess, and thus gave birth. And so thus why the story author is talking about Pharaoh's wife, not daughter. That's a mistranslation. Daughters are not allowed to be single mothers and raise babies. It's the queen. And so, yeah, her being there, bathing at the Nile River, is not a coincidence by the author. For her to have a baby given to her by the gods from the Nile River. That's all symbolic, it's all prophecy and revelation for the latter-day Christ. But this is how they understood the land, this is how they understood the heavens, this is how they understood their lives and their bodies and everything in it. Everything relates to each other. And thus, the language is a visionary language. There isn't one word meaning to explain it. It's a whole kit and caboodle altogether. The government, the religion, society, it's all the same. So, yeah. Think about that the next time you have a menstrual cycle, women. It's just the annual inundation that occurs every month instead of every year. Don't you feel special? And so, yeah, I would have never had figured this out if I hadn't been sabotaged by my mom to be put on this course as a child born in the covenant Mormon, born and raised, having the scriptures to study, and then having a whole bunch of questions that the church refuses to answer. And so I had to find the answers. And so in doing, all things work together for who I am now. And wanting to know everything about women has been one of the biggest secrets that I've had to keep secret. Because everybody thinks I'm not allowed to know about women. Women are porn, they're evil, they're addictive, they're sinful. You'll go blind. They'll take you away from the church and the gospel. They're the same. Elder Pullman was wrong. He had to have his talk changed. And so, yeah, fashion plates helped lead into learning Egyptian. Going into cartooning helped me lead into Egyptian, because Egyptian is the original cartoons. The whole hieroglyphs. That was one of the other pictures I forgot to put in the video. Bing's main picture today was an Egyptian glyph from the Dead Sea Scroll, the Dead Sea Scroll, not the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of the Dead, which is the coming forth by day, technically translated, better corrected. I don't know why they keep publishing Budge's works. Again, Stargate, the movie, Daniel Jackson. And so, yeah, I've got those picture clips of the text. So, and again, it's one of those things where I have a knowledge of the subject matter, and then I'm screaming at the screen going, "What the hell are you doing? No, that's not, oh my God, who wrote this? Did you use Budge?" And so, yep, I have, you see the Yoda, the baby Yoda, and the Superman cap. Thank you for the guy who's been following me the longest. That was awesome. He had to to find a way to sneak it into the Gail Miller's concentration camp of hell of human trafficking. Man. But yeah, I've got other props that I've had and used in previous videos in West Valley that are in the closet. Those made it. Lots of other stuff didn't make it. But yeah, I'm a game person. All because it's all learning games. And that's how schools should have done it. When they realized that kids were involved in arcade games, they should have had the school boards across the nation go, hey, our kids are getting involved in gaming, and pretty soon computer gaming, and they're still trying to force kids to use books for their method of learning. And I can understand this is where the arguments of, well, the movie didn't accurately follow the book. No duh, it's a different presentation method. And so there are liberties that are taken because of it. And so yes, you can learn from a book, you can learn from the movie, you can learn from a TV series of it. It's just a different medium to learn from. And enemies of man don't want to acknowledge that. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And Christians, they want to destroy our nation, they want to destroy our culture, they want to have everybody put in bondage, and no rights of life, liberty, and property. You have to obey the one true God, and nobody's figured out a plan as to who's going to be that one true God voice. They're not thinking to the final solution after they accomplish their goals. Because right now, it's the secret combination run by the church. So I guess it's the church, Nelson, or Oaks, whenever Nelson dies. And I don't think the world knows and understands this, that you're going to be forced to be Mormon. If Trump becomes president, you're going to be forced to become Mormon. And nobody believes this would be true, you know, just like they don't believe that Trump is a convicted rapist and overthrew Roe v. Wade. He's the perfect role model for a family man. Really? You're a woman and you're saying that, huh? Okay. Have fun with the consequences that will be inevitable. And, so, yeah, lots of stuff. What's next? Idaho chick. I can see them now. Really? The fashion plates. And your mom having no clue that you were hiding the catalogs to look at women's clothing fashion. I had to. It was a sin. It's a sin. No matter where I go, no matter what I do, it's a sin. Name that tune. Which that could be the theme song. Because it seems like YouTube may have lifted or resolved their CISAC violations. That was one of my favorite songs, and I've often used that for running in the morning. Let's see. But yeah, this is an interesting thing because my mom saw me as hiding them as trying to cover up sin. But it's not sin. Your bodies aren't sin. wearing clothes or lack thereof is not sin. And there's a funny picture, and I don't know if I have it in my file on this computer, or if it's buried in my files. Buried in the files. Yeah, this doesn't really have the full set that I have in the files. But it's by a guy, obviously, teasing women who who are okay wearing a bikini, swimsuit, public, letting everybody see their body, even though watching videos and TV shows about women talking about how it's getting close to spring and they've got to do a crash diet to starve themselves and pop pills and so that they can fit into their swimsuits. I'm so sad. But nonetheless, women are okay letting other people, not Mormon women, mind you, the rest of the world's women. Mormon women, no, they're still layered in their swimsuits. Women typically are okay in swimsuits being seen publicly, whereas underwear, oh hell no. Even though it covers up the body and same amount as a swimsuit, but no, our society has deemed that underwear is porn, not swimsuits, unless it's kids. That is porn. And so, yeah, I remember the commercials back in the 70s of the underoos and the little girls in their underwear. And even the Sears catalog had no problem showing little girls in their underwear that they were selling. And now it's porn. Now it's child abuse, child sex assault, to show little kids in their underwear or even kids naked, which never used to be an issue. If you see the Egyptian hieroglyphs, the children are often naked because they're children. And you know, yeah, we know the reason why they had issues with lice, which is why the men typically shave their heads. But you know, there are certain things that, for hygiene purposes and protection from the weather and the elements, but nonetheless, I mean, to still call it evil. I still remember in West Valley, I was in my suit, I was going to a ward missionary meeting, because I was a ward missionary, among other 7 callings. And walking by this one particular house, and it's a single mom, and she's got a daughter who's still a teenager, underage, and the mom was yelling at her daughter to get outside, and I didn't want to get involved, but I didn't want her abusing the little girl, so I was keeping attention on what was going on, just in case I needed to get involved and prevent domestic violence. And I could hear the girl screaming from inside the house, "No, Mom, I'm not gonna do it. Get out here now. I'm naked. Get out here." That got my attention. "Get out here now. I don't care." And so, yeah, the girl came out. She wasn't naked. She was in her underwear. And I have no idea. God, she's just a kid, leave her alone. But nonetheless, I mean, our society is just so warped, and here in Utah, women get arrested if they breastfeed. I mean, seriously, the number of cops who've arrested women because they are breastfeeding is just sickening. The abuse that is done to women is unforgivable. And so, yeah, it would be nice to get women to Zion so that they can be free from the abuse of the world and the church. There's just so much of it. So women can finally learn that they're the Nile, not in denial. So Idaho Chick continues, love that JCPenney came out with higher quality photos. Yes, this is a magazine issue that was back in that time. They were learning how to do glossy magazine paper. It was a different quality that was able to improve the picture quality. Because original Sears catalogs, you know, you have black and white pictures, and then if you go back further, you have cartoon drawings of the products. Just like the fashion plates, it's, you know, hand drawn rather than actual photos. And so the evolution of magazines has progressed. And of course, every new art medium that comes out, there's always a guy who wants to use it for women. That was Playboy. Was rolling out magazines and was on the forefront of the evolution of the quality of magazine production because of that. And so, yeah, there was airbrushing during the 80s, and of course, the anti-humans, anti-women were coming out and saying that women aren't real, these are airbrushed, no, and then, oh my God. It is an art medium. Statues, oh my God, they're not real. This isn't a real portrayal of women. Paintings, this isn't real. You know, all this time since Christianity was invented, they've been attacking women. When women are the most beautiful of all objects, and I could do that as the theme song. Could you be the most beautiful girl in the world? Prince. But, yeah, it's just sad. And I've witnessed the abuse of women. That's why I don't want to get into Beth from kindergarten. And so Idaho Chick says, this has been my favorite memory you've shared. And so, yeah, it's with it was actually older before my time, phonographs, but records is what I remember first, and then 8-track tapes, and because we had, when we moved from Michigan to California, we stopped at a gas stop, and there was Sean Cassidy's newest album on 8-track, and because I knew Sean Cassidy from the Hardy Boys, my parents got it. Seemed safe and family values. And so parents were forced to listen to it on the 8-track in the station wagon. And it was awesome. And then when we moved to Placentia, I would listen to that a lot. It was before I would have my own clock radio. That was given to me in June of 1982, because that's when my parents' anniversary is. And so my dad, for their anniversary gift, got him a new clock radio and gave me the old one. At least it wasn't a mop. Here, dear, happy anniversary. This will make your life much more easier. And then a whole bunch of Simpsons episodes popped into my head. And so, yeah, my dad purposely set it to the Dodger station, and and so all the rest of the summer, I only knew that it had the Dodger station. I didn't want to dare move it because I may never find the Dodger station again. And I really didn't understand AM versus FM. So I get to school, and somehow in conversation it came out that, I got a clock radio over the summer, and I'm listening to Dodger games. I know, cool. And then they go, oh, what music are you listening to? Music? My mom has Elvis records. We have an 8-track of Sean Cassidy. And so then I was more bold and daring to check out the FM dial. And that's why I keep switching back and forth rather than sticking to one channel, where most of my peers were either a metalhead or a pop or a country. And then other different genres would also emerge, but disco had died that October 23rd, 1982. Have a moment of silence. And so, yeah, I'm hearing some of the residue of disco, and before it was gone, and I really liked disco. It was pretty cool, and now it's gone. And so, yeah, there were TV shows like Xanadu that showed some of that disco-esque transition period music. But yeah, then we had cassette tapes, and so there was BMG in Columbia House that I was able to do mail order stuff, and had a whole collection of cassette tapes that when I got home from my mission, they were stolen by my sister and my cousin, who divided it among themselves. But that's okay, because we were about to turn into the CDs. And so, yeah, all of the evolution of the different technologies I've seen in my lifetime, not just with movies, from the theater to TV to video, VHS tape, to DVDs, and then, dear God, why did they go to Blu-ray? I mean, seriously, they purposely tanked the DVDs to promote the Blu-rays. And Disney still does it to this day. Oh, those bastards. They are not customer friendly. And you cannot buy Disney movies anymore. They only want you to go through streaming, so I have to find outside sourcing to get DVDs from Disney stuff. Oh my hell. And so, yeah, I finally was able to get season 32 of The Simpsons on DVD. None of the others from season 21 to season 32, or the season 33 I think we're now on, if not 34, about to hit 34, something like that. But yeah, you cannot get it in America. Disney hates America. And so I have to go to communist countries that Disney supports and favors. So yeah, that was awesome. Simpsons still's got it. It's just amazing. And so yeah, I want the rest of the collection on DVD. I was pissed enough as it was, because The Simpsons on Fox didn't want to put out DVDs. It's like they did them reluctantly, and they were way behind, and they didn't bother to catch up. But then the Family Guy came out, and they were okay with the Family Guy coming straight out to DVD. And it's not The Simpsons. And so, yeah, it's the same. This kind of evolution of technology is what I see in the church. As I was a part of the, hey, we got brand new scriptures for you with footnotes and a Bible dictionary and topical guide. We want you to study. This is how you do it. Annotate your scriptures, get them dirty, crimple them up. And there were, I remember one girl who was pissed that the teacher crumpled up her paper of the scriptures. She wanted them pure and white. I had no trouble blackening my scriptures. Hilarious. And so, yeah, then I was again on my mission, and then got married and up in Canada, and so I missed the whole Star Trek New Generation episode and psychology infiltrating our school systems to corrupt the youth and utterly destroy America from it. And so I missed out on a lot of that stuff in the church. That, you know, Mark Hoffman was in the 80s, and I was kept away from knowing what was going on with that. And then September 6th in 1993, had no clue about that. And so when I get to Utah and I'm deciphering Paleo-Hebrew, and I'm going to the church saying, hey, I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, Joseph Smith is correct in the King Follett sermon. Anything else you got for me from Joseph Smith that I can work on? And all hell breaks loose, and I'm under attack ever since. And so I had no clue about the salamander letter of Mark Hoffman, or September 6th with a rock and a hat. Because I'm pursuing Egyptian and Paleo-Hebrew. I was finding out that Joseph Smith was legitimate, and everybody else was finding other things that showed that the church has been lying to us, and then they can't figure out what it meant. And it didn't matter. Church isn't true, therefore Joseph isn't true, because this church must be the same church as Joseph's, because that's what they say. She continues, except that it is sad how the church groomed parents. Yeah, they get the parents to groom the children, and the children grow up to be the parents, and they then groom their children. It's a cyclical abuse structure. To think that they raised their kids to think sexuality was bad and never to look at a woman. Yeah, they misunderstand the passage, whosoever looketh upon a woman to lust after her hath denied the Spirit, and is an anti-Mormon, antichrist, apostate, korahor. Precisely as it stands in our New Testament and in the Book of Mormon, because Jesus plagiarized himself to prove that the Book of Mormon is literal history true. No, it's because this church doesn't care about translation. They don't care about the original Greek. They don't care to translate the Bible correctly. That's why the confusion remains. Because he's talking about adultery first from the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not commit adultery. What is adultery? It's having sex with another man's woman. That's adultery. And you need to understand it in the context that women are only able to have one baby at a time for about a year. So one baby every year. That's it. That's all. And so a guy, even though he can produce, what was the number? 3 trillion in a lifetime? Assuming that there's enough women for every single one to have a baby in a lifetime. And so in the context of that, a man is the head of the home, and he's got a wife, and he's got to live, and so he has a family so that he can take stuff to market. And so if you've got some other guy coming along, plowing your wife, giving her a child through him, and then he's gone, and he doesn't get to take care of the baby and raise it, you now do. And it's not your kid. This is where the story of the birth of Jesus comes into play here. He bought his wife, even though that document was not approved by the Christians for their Bible. It just says he's espoused to marry Mary. But this was the case, is that because of the way things were and the way they tried to figure it out, even though Christianity and Babylon took away women's rights, and just a slow digression of taking away women's rights since Babylon, that women were specifically to be purchased by a man for the sake of raising a family, to have heirs, to pass on his business, and thus transferred from kings, having a kingdom and heir to the throne as his son. That all played a part in that. And so women were the ones who were supposed to provide the man with the children. And so if you've got a wife who's got some other guy's kid who's not yours, this is where Genesis comes into play here, where pharaohs keep knocking up the patriarchs and prophets' wives. And I never did get to do that video for you guys, because it's symbolic or prophetic also. and so there had to be laws set in place, and thus no adultery. Get your own woman, that type of thing. That's really what it is. Don't commit adultery is get your own woman. And so when Jesus is talking about that, he's saying, "But I say unto you, whosoever looketh upon a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery in his heart." This is the commandment of thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, which is different than adultery. It's already in the commandments. Jesus is merely repeating it. Another man's wife is another man's wife. Get your own. But when you're single, it's a little more complicated. You don't have your own. No woman wants you. And so you see these other women who obviously are all beautiful, and she's got to be somebody's baby because she's so fine. She's probably somebody's only light gonna shine tonight. Oh, see? That's how it works. That's how it works. And And so Jesus isn't talking about don't have sex, don't look at a woman, don't have sexy thoughts. He knows very well people have sexy thoughts. He's human in the scriptwriter's mind. Modern-day Christ. And so, yeah, people screw that up. And so when you see the word woman in English translation, it's not woman. It's some female who's had children. And so you'll see virgin or maiden for a girl, female, who's not had children. That is the difference. That is how they distinguish between a girl and a woman. If you are a girl and you're now a spinster of 20 years old, back in those days, you're still a virgin. And so, yeah, there's a stigma back in that culture for being old at 20 and not being married off, because then you get the story of Leah and Rachel, about how Jacob wanted Rachel, and was forced by the father to marry the oldest daughter first, because she has to get married first, even though the younger one is hotter. Heavenly eyes, but all that size. Dorcas, awesome cat lady. So, yeah, the church really takes advantage of Mormons with an incorrect translation of the Bible. This is how they abuse you. And so Benson's first presidency statement about why we are still using the King James Version of the Bible, which is the worst translation ever created by man. And his excuse was, well, Joseph Smith had this version. Have you not been paying attention to what Joseph had been doing the whole time? He's trying to make a corrected translation of the Bible. And here Benson is giving us that BS. And then when I was working on the footnotes, they give me that paper. I'm looking at it, I'm going, I'm going to ignore this and put this in the back of my mind because he's wrong. A living prophet of Jesus is wrong. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. He's wrong. God. And so, yeah, pornography, yeah, it's fornication. It's pornication. That's where the whole thing comes from. But nobody wants to know the Greek, that it refers to the Greek practice of having women who are unwed work in the temple to recreate the creation of the heavens and the earth, and thus childbirth as well. Getting women pregnant and having children, blah, blah, blah. And so understanding that men need it more than once a year or once a month, they offered to have men pay to worship at the temple by having sex. And so the story of Eli and his two sons with Samuel, not only is it hilarious because they're all God names. God, 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 name of God, God, house of God, sons of God, God's voice. Hilarious. The author was clever in that one. But the sons are condemned to death because they had sex as sacral prostitutes which reveals that it's Roman period dating, because that's the transition. Greeks began female sacral prostitution. Romans included men. So Sodom and Gomorrah and the sons of Eli reveal Roman period dating. You can't go back in time to prove that it's an older document. Documentary hypothesis is crap. There are no missing plates. Nope, this is it. It's Roman period. You found it. This is the oldest document. And so, yeah, that's what it was all about, is that rooms were designated in the temples of the Greeks, which were taken over by the Romans, for the sacral prostitution. And so thus, when the woman was not working in the temple, following the covenant path, she hung out outside in front of the statues, before the statue. Thus, prostitute, before the statue. That's where it comes from. And so the forbidding of fornication is not, two virgins touching each other, petting and necking. Has nothing to do with that. That was Benson's edition, and from Kimball's Miracle of Forgiveness, from Packer's talk that he gave as an apostle, that they decided to turn into official doctrine of the church at the pulpit of conference, along with beaten tone. And so that's all it's talking about, is that the Greek women at the temples who are sacral prostitutes are not your religion. That's what the Jewish author is saying. The practices of the Romans of the religion, that's not our religion. Do not practice the religion of the Romans. Do not practice the religion of the Greeks. Do not practice the religion of the Babylonians, for Daniel. That's what they're getting across. You are Jewish. Practice your religion. That's all it is. When they say don't commit fornication, that's what they're talking about. Practice your religion. Don't have sex with other men's wives. Don't have sex with temple workers of another religion. Thus, Genesis 48 with Tamar. Judah was straying to have sex with Greek prostitutes, but no, he was earlier. Author reveals otherwise. These are linguistic tells to figure things out. Just like this video has been gone on for an hour and 46 minutes with no cyber terrorism on the video. Notice that? I noticed that. That's what I'm looking for. I told you. Something happened, and the anomaly was that I finally went through the FBI through a different branch than the Utah one. And so it's getting me more upset that I'm confirming that the Utah branch is purposely not doing their job and they're protecting the church instead. Pissing me off. America is about to fall, and our FBI here in Utah are aiding and abetting in the coup. So anyway, let's get back to happy times with Idaho Chick. Caused a lot of bad stuff. And so, yeah, you should realize the difference, as Idaho Chick does. She understands that Mormons have been conned by this church, and thus are unknowing that they have been turned evil, that they have been turned sinners, that they have been turned wicked and corrupt, that they have been turned into weapons against other people for the church. And that's the sad part. To see innocent little girls, and then they grow up to be monsters. Just so sad. To be abused in a marriage is the worst nightmare a guy could ever have. Thinking that finally he can have sex, finally he can look at a woman, finally he can have those thoughts. And then she says, "Not tonight." And then she complains, "You want sex all the time." Yeah. And the guy is not taught sex ed. He doesn't know. Our society says, once you get married, then you can learn. And you'll have fun learning. Not if the woman also is learning too. Because certain things have to happen in order for it to work well. If it doesn't work well, the woman attaches the bad experience with her feelings on it as a bad experience. And so thus women who get raped are not wanting to have sex ever again because of the bad experience they had. To be involved in sex causes a post-traumatic stress syndrome, the memory of the horror of getting raped. And so, yeah, with all the abuse that happens to women, and if she has an abusive father and then she gets married and thinks that the guy is different than her dad and is not her dad, but then she sees that he's a guy and he's doing the same things as her dad did because he's a guy, all of a sudden post-traumatic stress kicks in. And then she starts fearing her husband, and then she then treats him like she treated her dad, as being abusive. And then the husband's going, "What are you doing? Why are you treating me like this? Why are you abusing me?" So yeah, this is a far bigger harm that the church is involved in here, that their family proclamation is pure evil, because it is sex abuse. The family proclamation is sex abuse. This church is pure evil, and all because they turned Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon into Christian. These are the consequences of that. Christianity is an abomination for a reason. And so she's thinking of positive, happy thoughts. We have more knowledge, more capacity to understand, so we can make changes. Not with psychology on the forefront, making sure people don't get the right knowledge, so that they don't have the capacity to understand, so that they aren't making changes. They're just repeating history because they're not learning from it. Teach differently and influence. Yeah, teach differently. If kids are into games, educate them through games. It's real simple. There are certain core curriculums that are needed to teach children. And so teach children those core curriculums through gaming. Get a programmer, hire a programmer to make games. Instead of word problems, you teach a kid through a computer game what needs to be done. Sally has 5 apples, so you have Sally on the screen with 5 apples. So that you have text and you have picture. So that the kid can learn better than just from a book. And people think that, no, you've got to allow your mind to create the images of what's in the text. No, you don't need to. Kid can actually learn more from seeing the visualization along with the text. You know, yeah, a script writer can ruin it by withholding information, but no, just because it's in a different art medium does not make it evil, does not make it wrong. Teach differently. Idaho chick knows what she's talking about. Still don't know her name. Still don't know her name. I do know that she wants to play with my fashion plates. No generation was as cool as ours, though. No, mine was. You've told me that you're in the next generation above me. So don't try to tell me yours was cooler. No, mine was. And yeah, you were tough kids and figured stuff out. Yeah. I know your generation. You were the older kids. Alrighty, 2-hour video. My hell. What a comment reply. So now I gotta, Jesus holds Mormon women hostage, because it was more on abuse of Mormon women, even though I do cover it generally of kids. So we'll see what I'll come up with.